Okay, so today we're going to look at the magic of a CSS parent selector and the power of what you can do with that. Now, technically, there is no such thing. There is no specification for CSS3 that has a selector to select your parent. However, because the has pseudo class is now more broadly accepted because it's been sitting there for quite some time, but it's really been probably in the last, I would say, 8 months that the browser support for it has got to a point where it's pretty much every modern browser that supports it. If you want to support older browsers, then you're not going to be able to use this selector. Now, today is the 12th of January 2025. And if you're watching sometime in the future, then there may be a new implementation that has a parent selector in particular. For now, this is how you need to do it. And it's quite a simple thing when you understand how it works. So what the has pseudo selector it does, it looks at an element in the DOM, and then it looks below that element for a typical CSS selector. So if we look at, for example, my basic example here, I have a parent. In my parent, I have a heading I've just called my heading, right? So if I use has on the my heading, if you use the has on my heading, so on that my heading element here, it's saying that if my parent has me, so has a direct child of a class called my heading, that means that this part is true and everything inside these curly brackets will apply to that part. So by not specifying the element here, you're saying any element that has me as a child. So and that child doesn't have, with the greater than, that child does not have to be any specific order. It's just got to be a child of that parent. Okay. Now we are going to use Bricks Builder today, and I'm going to show you some examples. So I'm going to use the Bricks Builder root placeholder, and in Bricks I'll show you how that works. That translates into whatever class you've selected. So this one selector here we can use on any class to select our parent. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that by creating a focus on parent, a clickable parent, media as background, and positionable decorations. And with the beauty of this is we create a single class which we put on that element, and that applies all of the properties to our parent that we need to make this work. An example of that with our focus on parent, what we're going to do there is we're going to tell our, let's say for example this is a link, could be a heading or a button. We're going to tell that when we tab to that, we want the focus outline to not show on that link or that button. We want to disable it on that link or button. And then what we want to do is we want to move that focus outline to the parent element. So that's what we want to do with that. Clickable parent, what we want to do is we want to expand the clickable area of our button or link. We want to expand the clickable area of that to fill our parent so that it looks like our entire parent container is clickable. Media as background, we want to have some sort of media, whether it's an image, a grid of images, or whatever it is. We want to position that to look like it is a background of our parent, and we want to move it with the Z-index right to the background so that it sits behind the content. And with our positionable decorations, what we want to do is we want to have elements that we can position within our parent wherever we like it, say the top left, top right corner, etc. So we need things to happen on our parent so we can make that happen. So I'm going to start working through that now. Now, it will make sense when I show you. Some of this wording may get a little confusing, but it'll make sense when I show you how it actually works. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create a focus on parent. So if I head to the Bricks Builder and we select this button, for example, the button's got a link. Now in Bricks, when you put a button on the editor, by default, it is a anchor tag or a link. It's not a button. You have to change it to a button if you want to be a button. So what we're doing is putting just a pound on there to make it a link. and that is a simple button, okay, or single link that looks like a button, I should say. Often confusing for people. All right, now what we want to do is make it so that when we tab to this, our focus does not focus on the button, but it focuses on the parent. So let's just see what the current state of that is. If we look at our front end and I press the tab, I get that's a link as well. Press the tab again, and I get my focus outline on that button. Okay, we want to remove that and say focus on the parent container around me. Okay, let's have a look at doing that. So first thing we need to do is figure out what that style is. So I'm going to just have a look at that button. So I'm going to inspect that. I'm going to right click on it in the Chrome DevTools, and I'm going to force the state of focus. When you tab to an element, it gives it the state of focus visible. So we're going to click on focus visible, and that's going to give us our outline around that. And we can see in here that is the rule that's being applied to it. Okay, so heading back to our bricks builder, we're going to create a class called focus on parent. And with class names, just a tip here, when you're creating class names for utilities, make them make sense. Don't try to be too succinct and make them as small as you possibly can. Make them make sense. Like, I know that a common class for this is focus parent, okay, which probably made sense at the time. For me, focus parent is a bit ambiguous because it means, am I the focus parent, or do you want to focus on my parent? It's not very clear, so it can be confusing for particularly someone who's not used to it. Once you know what it is, it's fine. But if you're trying to figure out, hey, I've got this focus parent class, do I put that on the parent or do I put that on the child? I think if you say focus on parent, it just seems to make it more, I guess, more obvious to me. So I'm going to say focus on parent. Okay, in our focus on parent, our CSS, first thing we want to do is we're going to use the bricks R tab, and then we're going to say on our button or our focus on parent element, we're going to add focus visible. So the pseudo selector focus visible. So when we have focus visible, we want to set our outline to none. And I happen to know for this one, we're going to have to add the important, which I'll show you shortly. So we're going to say get rid of our focus. So let's just see what we've got now. Yep, let's hit the save and see what we've got now. Okay, so now if I tab to the heading, I've got focus around it. If I tab to the button, there is no focus outline because we've set the focus to none. Let's have a look at that button. Force focus visible, and let's have a look at what's happening. We've got our outline set to none and important. Now, this is a really important thing about CSS specificity. In Chrome, when it shows you the rules in the styles tab here, it shows you them in the order that they should apply because of the specificity. But what we can see here is this rule here, we've got a specificity of 2 and 1. So in this case, we've actually got a class, a pseudo selector, and I think we've got a HTML element, which is the body we have. So that's got a specificity of 2 and 1. Our rule that's actually applying has a specificity of 0 to 0. So this has less specificity, but because we've got the important keyword, it takes precedence. So that important keyword interferes with the specificity order and can make it difficult if you're trying to look through your styles in Chrome. It can make it difficult to determine where is this applied. So what I would normally do is, instead of using important, I would make this more specific than that rule. So I might add, for example, the keyword or the element of body in front of that, or or bricks main, or whatever it is. You put something in front of that to make it more specific. You don't need to use the important keyword. I'm just going to use important for now because it's just easy, and we're not going to want to override that anyway. So we get rid of that. Now, what we need to do is on the parent, we need to set the outline that we had on our link. So let's go back to our text document here. And here is our magic rule that we're going to use for bricks. I'm going to copy that to the clipboard. Going back to bricks and in bricks. I'm just going to paste that in there. Now, what we want to do is when we, so root refers to us or we, I'm going to call it when we have focus visible, we want our parent. So the brackets, this is where the has, the brackets is really just to say anything below me has this rule equaling true. So if this rule equals true, then I'm going to apply the properties to this part. So that part there will be our parent. In this case, the parent is the block up the top there. So what we're going to do now is grab the rules that apply to the button just from the Chrome Dev Tools here, copy that, go to the rule here, put that in there, and it's there. Now if I save, it's updating. So if I tab to my button, my focus is on the button. My link, my heading, which is a link. I tab to the button, and my focus goes to the parent. How cool is that? We've only added one class to our button, and the focus is on the parent. We didn't have to add a class to the parent to say, hey, focus on me, and then disable the focus on the button. We've just added it to the button, said, hey, focus on my parent, and that works perfectly. So that just did that for us. So we have now two situations where the heading link focuses itself, the button focuses on the parent. I'm not suggesting you have two links inside here doing that. I'm just showing you the difference in how they work. All right, so the next one we're going to look at is our clickable parent. Now, this again, I'm just going to think about the wording of this, whether it's too ambiguous or not. So again, when you have clickable parent, when you're new to it, or you're new to these utility classes, you might think, do I put this on the parent or do I put this on the child element that I want to be clickable? It's not immediately obvious to me. So I will maybe change that to say click maybe extend parent, extend parent, or extend to parent. I mean, your class names can get pretty long when you do this, but that's at least that makes sense, right? Click extend to parent. Clickable parent, click extend to parent. It's up to you, whatever makes sense for you. But for the purpose of being able to understand this 6 months down the track, when I come back and go, oh, what's this meant to do? Click extend to parent, not I'm the clickable parent or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Click extend to parent. Okay. Oh, whoops, clicking on too many things too quickly here. Click extend to parent. All right, so what do we want to happen with our click extend to parent? The first thing we need to do is we need to make sure our parent container is positioned relative so that we can absolutely position a hidden background on our element we want clickable that fills the parent to extend the clickable area of that parent. So let's head over to our magic selector here. That's the magic selector, copy that. We're going to stick that into our builder and just making sure that our class is selected up here in that input up there, because the root refers to whatever's selected up here. If you don't select it, you're probably going to be styling at ID level. So what we're going to do is make our position relative. Okay, position relative. Now, what else do we want to do? On our button, we want to make sure that we have a background which extends to our parents. So let's do that now. Root before. Okay, so we want content of nothing. We want empty content. Position of absolute. And we want to set the inset to 0. Now, inset 0 means if you position something absolutely, inset 0 is like saying top, right, bottom, left, 0. So go to all corners, basically. That's pretty much what that does. Now, one other thing I'm just going to do here I forgot about is we want to set our z-index on our root element. So that's on the clickable parent or click extend to parent element. We want to set our z-index to be high. I'll explain that as I go. To maybe we'll just set this 99. Now the reason we set that to 99 or anything like that is you might have this element in any order in the DOM, and what will happen is you'll have a natural stacking order. So if another element appears on top of that, then you lose focus as you mouse over the text or the, whatever it is, an icon, you lose focus because that's element sitting on top of what you want to be clickable. So we want to set the Z index nice and high on our button or whatever it is that we want to be clickable parent. So I'm going to save that and just see if that worked. There we go. See our mouse? And as we roll over, see our button changing? That's exactly what we wanted. Now, there is a problem with this that we need to solve because that is a simple rule, right? We didn't have to do anything on the parent whatsoever because we targeted the parent with our simple parent selector here, set our position to relative, which means that all of the absolute positioning stuff is just going to work for us. Okay, one thing I remembered to look at is if we do this on the link, say for example we do this on a heading and extend to parent, save, this will not work. Okay, see that's not working. Why is that not working? Because with bricks, when you have a heading tag and you put a link on it, it doesn't turn the that tag into a link. It magically sticks an anchor tag inside of that. Okay, so you need to be able to cater for that as well. With the button, it just makes that a link. With the heading, it puts an extra link inside of that button. So we need to actually make sure that we're accounting for that by adding an extra rule on here, there, by roots, and we're going to use anchor tag before. Okay, now it's working because we're applying that clickable area to that link. So we have to look at that. We're actually targeting the H3's anchor tag before. Okay, now if we go back to, if we take that off there, go back to the button and put it on there, extend the parent, just make sure it still works, and that still works. So we just had to make sure that it worked in both scenarios. But let's have a quick look here. So our parent selector, so our fancy little selector here, this has with a greater than root in the brackets. Let's have a look what that actually does. So here's our extended parent there. So our parent, which will be this one here, if we have a look there, we can see our rule has applied because that parent has a child of click to extend parent. So I'm going to set my position to relative. So we don't need to put a class on the parent. We just need to put a class on the child, and it just works. I love this way of thinking because it's very simple. Okay, let's have a look at the media as background. Now this is an interesting one. Okay, media as background. Let's chuck a image in there. And on that image, we're going to set something a bit light. We'll use the seagull because then we don't have to change the color of our text. Okay, so we've got an image as background there. Now, we want to make that image fill the space. So, in fact, I probably won't do that. I'm going to put in a block. Inside that block, I'm going to put my media in there. It just makes it more flexible because then I can have whatever I want in here. I can have that as a grid. I can have that as a video. I can have that as whatever I want because I'm going to use this and position that in the background. So I'm going to make this my media as background. Okay, I'm going to create a class for that as, and again, you can abbreviate this to IMG as BG if you want. If you're going to remember that in the future and remember what you typed, I like to be more verbose with this. Okay, media as background. So what do we want to do with our media as background? Actually, first thing we want to do is make sure we select an image. So I'm going to select my seagull again. Okay. Now, we can do a bunch of styling here from the media as background, or we can style these separately. I'm going to do it all from the media as background, just so how obvious it is when you do it that way. So media as background. What we're going to do is target the, parent first. I'm going to grab our parent selector. In our parent selector, we want to position our media background absolutely inside of our parent, which means our parent has to be relative. Okay, now also we're going to put the media in the background, and we don't want this to disappear behind any color. So if we have section color or something like that, we don't want it to disappear by using the default browser stacking order for Z-index. So we're going to set our isolation to isolate. I'll explain this a bit further as we go. So isolation to isolate. Now, on our media as background, so we're just going to target cells. So we've told our parent we want it to be relative and isolated. Now we're going to tell our cells what to do. So we're going to be position of absolute. Okay, there we go. So it's position absolute, which defaults to inside the padding box. So we're going to set the inset to 0, so it fills the box, and that's fine. Now what we have is our media, which is the image, extending beyond that there. So let's target the image. So we're going to root. I'm going to target the image. This is going to get tricky if we have a media grid. I'm just going to do it quickly here. And we're going to set the width to 100%, height to 100%. So it fits in there, and see how it's squashed. We're going to set the object fit now. See how it just squashed the image, and you see the seagulls all squashed up. So I'm going to set our object fit to cover. Again, you could do this on the actual image itself, but doing it here means it's obvious. You look in one place and you can see what's happening with that image. Now, you might need to make this more specific if you're going to have media grids and other elements inside here, but we're just going to keep it simple for this demonstration. So that's it done, except for we need to put this in the background now. So I'm going to put our cells in the background with a Z-index of -2, and that puts it in the background. Why do we do -2? So remember we put our parent, so the parent, if we look in the structure on the right hand side, our parent block has a position, a relative, and an isolation of isolate. Isolate means I am the lowest possible Z-index for all of my children. So if I set any of these children's to, Z-index of -10 million, it's still going to be on top of me. Okay, so it resets the stacking order from that point in the DOM down, which means that when you set a negative Z-index, it's not going to disappear behind the color of your other containers, your section, your whatever it is. So if you put a section container on there, section color on there, and you don't set your isolation to isolate, then you do a -2, your element will disappear behind the section color because the stacking order is lower. So we're just resetting the stacking order, and that's what that does. So there's our media done, and because this is a -2, we can go to our parent, we can go to our the gradient overlay, and we can set a overlay and add a overlay to it, and it works. Okay, just works perfectly because our Z-index is -2 on our media's background, then this still sits on top of it. Okay, so I think they set the Z-index to -1, which is why we want to make sure that ours is on -2. So there we go. We have media's background done, and let's have a look in the front end, and we have in here we have our image. Okay, and it's image's background, and there's a lot of reasons that we want to do this rather than using a CSS background. It's easier to decide whether it lazy loads or not. You get a source set so that it's going to load different size images at different breakpoints. And you get an alt tag, which you can put a description on for screen readers and helping Google to know what this is all about. How simple is that? So we've just created three things. We've done a, what have we done? We've done the focus on parent, clickable parent, media's background, and now we've got positionable decorations. That's the last one we're going to do with this. And all of these only required one class to be put on one element, and the rest of it happens magically because of this magic parent selector. So let's do the next one, which will be a decoration. Okay, so I'm going to add inside my parent, I'm just going to add a div. I'm going to call this my decoration wrapper. Okay, so here's my decoration. Inside, I'm just going to add an icon just so we got something. Okay, now let's give it a class. Decoration wrapper. Sounds easy enough, doesn't it? So what are we going to do with a decoration wrapper? Okay, we want to position this absolutely within a parent. So the parent needs to be set to relative. So let's grab our magic rule, go to our CSS for the decoration wrapper, put our rule there. We make sure that our position is relative. Okay, so just a point here. I've got multiple elements here that are all setting the parent element to whatever. These are all going to work as long as they're the same values. So what this means is that if I don't have any of these others, but I have my decoration wrapper, I'm still going to set my my position to relative on my parent. But if you have different elements selecting different properties for your parent, you need to have multiple parents. So you need to have wrappers to make that happen, because you can't have a parent be both, for example, absolute and relative. So you need to be very careful about how you structure your content when you do this sort of thing. But if you're just doing these simple things, not a problem at all. Okay, so what does that mean here? So let's go to my root. So that's me, my wrapper. And let's say we position that as absolute. Okay, and there we go. It's stuck up the top left corner in the padding box. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do now is I am going to do my, I'll just use top. You can use the new, I can't remember, the logical selectors. I think I'm just going to use top left, top right, bottom left. It just makes sense to my brain at the moment. So I'm going to go top of 0, left of 0, and then going to stick it right in the very top corner. Right, we then might want to translate that outside of there. So we're going to do our translate of transform of translate translates to we're going to do minus 50% and minus 50%. What have I messed up here? Okay, I'm going to save that. Two-dimensional transform is applied to element through transform property. Transform. Must have typed something incorrectly. So I'm going to do translate minus 50%. Love using the Chrome dev tools here, so I can tell you exactly where you've gone wrong. You can just do it here. You can see it happening. Go live, copy and paste that into your editor, and there we go. So now we've put a element, the top left in the corner, just by applying one class, which is the decoration wrapper. And that might be our default. Let's create a modifier for that. Root, top right. Root top right. Okay, and with that, we're going to left, unset. We need to unset the left, and we need to set the right to 0. And we're going to, if you set left, it overrides the right, so you've got to unset it. Then we're going to transform, change our transform. We want to be 50% minus 50%. Okay. So now we've got a modifier in there. So I'm just going to duplicate that. And on there, I'm going to put that in there and just do a top right. Okay. So now we've got a top right version of it. So we've got our decoration wrapper with our modifier. Now, this is something that a lot of people mess up, I think, when they're looking at these blocks and modifiers, is they try and put all the properties on the modifier, where the reality is what you should be doing is having the default, which is the block default, and then your modifier. So this has all the defaults. You don't have to recreate all the defaults in the modifier. And that way, if you change some of the defaults, it doesn't matter. It's going to apply to all your modifiers. So it just makes sense to do it that way. We can do one more. Let's do one more. Let's do another one. We'll call this bottom. We'll do this as a bottom right. Left unset, top unset, bottom 0, and right 0. Okay, and our translate here is going to still be minus 50 there. We're going to be minus 50 there. And what we're going to do is grab that name. And we're now going to go dash dash bottom right. Okay, and that did not work. Why did that not work? Oh, bottom. Root bottom right. Did we put that on there? Let's have a look. There we go. Ah, it's just the editor not updating. That's weird. And we want to, bottom right, we want to translate by 50 and 50. Save. There we go. That works. It was just the editor not updating for some reason. So here we go. We've created 3 versions of a decorator using the same methodology. So I'm going to leave it at that because we've been through the how to target your parent using this magic selector here. If you don't use bricks, you can put the actual class name there. If you are using bricks, you can use the root placeholder and then just apply that to your CSS. We've created a focus on parent, clickable parent, media's background, positional decorations, all using this parent element. So if you like this sort of thing, hit the subscribe, hit the like. Thanks, guys.